I am honored to present the Vice President of the Philippines.
Ambassador and Mrs. Stevenson, Excellencies, distinguished officials of the Philippine government and the American government, ladies and gentlemen. Early Saturday morning, the Filipino people awoke to the shocking announcement that John F. Kennedy, 35th President of the United States of America, was dead. The news not only shocked Filipinos, more than that, it struck them with a deep sense of personal loss. The moment of tragedy served as a reminder to Filipinos that in their hearts they have a special place for America, for the people who helped them through the years after the turn of this century towards the attainment of their aspiration for independence. If anyone had any doubts of the deep friendship of the Filipino people for America, this moment of shared grief erased all that. The tragic death of President Kennedy underscored the abiding ties that hold together our two peoples, united by the same ideals, the same aspirations, and indeed by the same fears of the future. It was my privilege and good fortune to talk with President Kennedy twice on problems affecting the Philippines and the United States. On both occasions, preoccupied as he was with problems of larger dimensions, such as the ban on nuclear testing and other thorny issues of the Cold War, he nevertheless displayed a keen interest in Philippine affairs, as well as a genuine desire to see this country forge ahead in its efforts towards a better life. So lively was his interest in the Philippines that he even found time to discuss with me the Philippine Declaration of Independence of June 12, 1898, particularly the references in that historic document to the libertarian principles of the United States. But let me not speak of John Kennedy only in relation to the Philippines. Let me speak of him rather as the leader of mankind that he was. For the assassination of President Kennedy was a crime not only on the person of a great man, or only against the great American nation, or only against the alliance of democratic countries the world over. It was indeed a crime committed against mankind itself. As a nation, America can trace her power to the beginning of this century when the United States government organized the resources of private groups, utilized the inventions of gifted individuals, reformed the structure of government, and launched an international policy that broke old power blocks and spread democracy. Yet, it is rare, even for a nation with a history favored by destiny as the United States has been, to have a leader with the vision, the ideal, and the determination to translate this ideal into fact as President Kennedy. Although he was hardly 3 full years in the presidency, Mr. Kennedy was already being compared by contemporary historians not only to the equally visionary Franklin Delano Roosevelt, but even to that towering figure in the epic of human freedom, Abraham Lincoln, whose Emancipation Proclamation striking down slavery was put into active practice by the Kennedy administration with its civil rights program. President Kennedy once declared that as long as there is one man in bondage anywhere in the world, mankind cannot claim that it enjoys freedom. To a humanitarian of Mr. Kennedy's gigantic devotion, the chain that bound one man also bound all men in the imprisonment of the human spirit. And so it is that his death is felt by human beings everywhere who realize that in him there was a leader of a great nation who was ready to champion liberty and therefore assure the progress of civilization, since only in liberty can civilization flourish. But it was not only in seeking the equality of men that President Kennedy became the symbol of the hope of the modern world. This modern world he characterized in his inaugural address as one where men have the power to end poverty, disease, and all the ancient evils that shackle society, as well as the power to destroy the earth itself. And in his quest for peace, President Kennedy devoted as much passion as in his quest for the equality of man. With the appeal that hostile power blocs must not be inactivated with paralysis from the fear to negotiate for a just peace, President Kennedy began a term of office which ended at dawn last Saturday, an hour the world will always lament. In expressing the sorrow shared by the Filipinos over the death of President Kennedy, I do not imply that America is in danger. President Lyndon Johnson, who is now the 36th President of the United States, is an able leader, as President Kennedy himself had repeatedly said. In establishing where there was none, a new frontier for the equality of men and for peace, President Johnson was truly the partner of his noble predecessor. Possibly, only President Johnson himself now knows the heavy burden that the American presidency means or bears, although he is not by any means a stranger to it, since he was the only other American elected by their countrymen to share the agonies of American leadership. Yet, we find that the grief over President Kennedy's death is so momentous that even history, a century or so from today, can treat it but with the greatest sorrow. What is most ironic is that, like President Lincoln, an assassin killed the very man who was doing everything to promote, protect, and perpetuate human dignity. Had he been a Joseph Stalin, the death of President Kennedy would have meant little than the renewal or readjustment of certain policies on a worldwide scale by a world power. But President Kennedy was not only a powerful leader, he was a great man. And it is the death of the man who was also a leader that we grieve. We are gathered here this afternoon to give testimony to the deep sorrow that both our peoples now bear on the passing of John F. Kennedy. Yet, we know that this is not enough. We know that grieving alone will not do justice to his memory. Let us then make a firm resolve that we who saw a vision of a new world of peace, justice, and freedom, thanks to the courageous leadership that he gave free men all over the world, thanks to the vigor that he infused into the ideals of democracy as he relentlessly fought for the full flowering of man's dignity, we who saw a brighter tomorrow, thanks to the man that was John Fitzgerald Kennedy, let us all make a resolve that we shall honor him by making his fight our own fight, his vision our own vision. Let us all seek to lift our own lives by striving in our own modest way, no matter how humbly, to contribute to the realization of that world of peace, justice, and freedom that was the holy grail to attain which John F. Kennedy gave everything that was in him, including life itself.